think they're a pinnacle part of Portland.
It's a staple in my daily life. I wouldn't ever get a meal twice a day without it.
I've been coming here since the pandemic started. Not only did I have health problems, but I also lost my job permanently that I had for over 16 years.
Sunshine Division is hope. It isn't defined by a single act. It's defined by every act we take to help our neighbors.
Thompson Street, it was a little rough. It's a tough looking old building. It's now nearly 100 years old. It's a machine shop from the Great Depression era that was not meant to be a food bank. It certainly was not meant to be an administrative office and absolutely was not meant to be a food pantry, yet we were doing all of those things there. The list of obstacles or challenges or just things that no amount of money was ever going to add to that building. It was a long list, but mainly not enough square footage, both for the people, our volunteers, our clients, but also the warehouse itself.
When I first saw Thompson Street, it wasn't going to stop me from helping with the mission. Because for me, it was the mission that is the most important. Simple, getting food to people who need it the most.
Really, the radical shift begins is about a decade ago. Our holiday programs grow exponentially. We add a summer food box program. We start doing more with our Izzy's Kids Shop with a Cop program. About 9 years ago, we add a second food pantry in Southeast Portland. And then in 2020, when the pandemic hits, that was just really the game changer, because both the need for what we do, people coming to us directly in all our programs, was already growing exponentially. But with the pandemic across the country, it's 6, 7, 8 times as many people visiting food pantries. And then we launch our home delivery program in April of 2020, and here we are years later, somewhere in the neighborhood of 150,000 food boxes have been dropped at doorsteps all across the Portland metro area, all the while continuing to grow those other programs.
Before Sunshine Division, my kids were barely making it. We were on the last of the snacks. The Sunshine Division, it made it a lot easier for our family to not go without.
All of our signature programs since the 1920s, those all still exist. The need for what we do, unfortunately, it's never been greater. We've seen stats that say food insecurity and the need for emergency food right now is akin to what it was during the Great Depression. And of course, the population of Portland has grown exponentially since then. So there's more people, and yet the rate of need is as great as it's ever been.
They help people that are on the absolute edge, and then they do it with dignity. You don't feel uncomfortable. I've seen people from all walks of life at Sunshine Division. It helps us people that are really, really struggling, mostly through no fault of our own, get through it.
The home delivery program allows us to reach people who would not have access to food relief otherwise. Our home delivery is one of the few programs that actually literally meets people where they're at. We talk about the things that made it hard for people to come and access service or even just work in this space. But I think there's a testament there to the people who show up every day and worked, whether it was staff or volunteers or donors, because the building itself was not great for what we were trying to do.
It's the hope within the darkest times. When you're feeling hopeless and there's not a lot that you can do for yourself when you're injured or disabled, the delivery was the biggest part of it, because it meant that I didn't have to figure out how I'm going to go out on the bus with the cart in the weather. It just gives me a lot of hope.
It is horrendously inefficient to try to do food banking without having a loading dock, and we did that for decades. We also didn't have enough room to warehouse all of our food. The space for our volunteers to then package and distribute food was next to non-existent. You put all those things together, what the building actually could do for us, that list was much smaller than the reasons of why we needed more space.
Since 2020, Safeway has let us use 2 vacant grocery stores, one in Northeast Portland and the most recently in the one in Wilsonville. The grocery store in Wilsonville has been the tool to show us exactly how to expand our operation and our outreach. So we've been able to expand our volunteer program through there, but expand the amount of food we've brought in, more importantly, the amount of food that we've been able to give out to families.
We got every possible ounce out of that building that we could. And so when we moved primarily our warehousing to those grocery stores, immediately Things that I would have never even conceived as possible happened right in front of my eyes. First week of April, we home delivered to 1,000 people because we had more space, we had loading docks, and that was in the midst of a pandemic. And so we just saw, oh my gosh, what is possible for this organization when you have better tools at your disposal, when you're not limited by this nearly 100-year-old warehouse that doesn't have any of the tools that we need.
Sunshine started in the Goose Hollow neighborhood here in Portland. It was important that we stay here.
We wanted to be in the core of the city. We got that. We needed the right amount of square footage to have not just racking for the food, but also cold storage for fresh and frozen food, and a home for our volunteers, and parking and access to TriMet. All of those things and more are happening in this space. This is going to be the home for Sunshine Division for decades to come, and it literally checks every box.
For the first time in 103 years, Sunshine Division clients are going to have their own designated space. A space that is completely designed and planned with them in mind. An actual client market where they're going to come in, be able to tell us exactly what they need for their families. It's a warm, inviting space. They're going to be able to shop off of shelves and stocked items that are specific for their own family needs. Everything we do out of this new building is going to be client-centered and have the greatest impact on folks needing food relief in the Portland metro area.
When you have a space, it has to be symbiotic. It flows better. And so when the warehouse team can work better, when the volunteers can work better, when the staff is fired up and excited to come to a building, been laid out appropriately for them, everyone's going to be operating at a higher level. Everything was always hard, took more effort, more problem solving than it ever probably should. But we had what we had. The limits were the limits, the building was the building. And now there's this whole paradigm shift of we're not limited. We're not having to duct tape a solution together that you shouldn't have to do or don't want to do. And so rather than having to problem solve about logistics, how can we problem solve to help more people?
The Sunshine Division community continues to show up for Sunshine, and that allows Sunshine to continue to show up for the community. You can't have one without the other. Before the move, Sunshine always had to make do with what we were given or what we had. Now after the move, we have a perfectly curated space to do more and impact more people's lives.